Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on 10 News at 2. I'm Shea Smith. Robin Wilhoit is at the University of Tennessee sharing a wealth of knowledge with some young Vols. She'll be back tomorrow. But today we have a lot to get to on the show. A 20-year legacy of special trips for veterans is ending tomorrow. John Becker will join us to talk about the final HonorAir flight here in Knoxville, and that takes veterans to memorials that were built in their honor. But again, it's coming to a close, so we'll talk about that more later on in the show. Plus, we are talking about the high price of gas. If you've stopped by the gas pump anytime recently, you probably have noticed some higher prices. It's hitting all of our wallets, but local leaders are also worried about another thing, how it could impact tourism as well. Libby Cunningham is turning that story today on 10 News, and she joins us alongside meteorologist Cassie Nall. Thanks so much, guys, for stopping by. But we'll get to the fuel market in just a minute, Libby. So let's start with you, Cassie. It's gotten a little chilly outside, but yesterday when I was talking to Todd, he said chilly in comparison to what it has been this past weekend. I mean, it was very warm.
Oh, yeah. We've had, through the 4th of April, we had the warmest start to the month on record. Then we finally got a cool down, that cold front that came through on Easter morning. I know a lot of folks were upset because it was raining for the sunrise services, but man, we needed that rain so bad, and it helped to cool down the temperatures too. Yesterday and today are actually right around average for this time of year. Tomorrow we'll be back in the low 70s, and then we're going to slowly warm up into the day Thursday, and then from Friday into the upcoming weekend, highs are back into the 80s, so we're running back again 10 to 15 degrees above average by the time we get into early next week. Also notice that there are no rain chances on that 7-day forecast. Right now, most of East Tennessee and pretty much the Carolinas and North Georgia, no rain for at least the next 7 days, and models are not too excited about it, even looking longer into the future. So we really would like to get some more rain in the ground, but for now, we'll just enjoy the sunshine. Yeah,
yesterday when I was talking to Todd again, I mean, we were talking about the rain on Sunday. It was needed for the rain that we have lacked, but it was also needed for the rain that we are going to lack. So it sounds like not right now, that's in our future.
No, we've got a very dry stretch ahead, so we want to encourage everybody to continue to practice fire safety. We don't currently have an elevated fire danger just because we had the rain on Sunday, but that's going to very quickly dry back out. We've got very dry air in place. Any breeze that we get, the low humidity, it's all going to just ramp back up that fire danger, so everybody just needs to be extra cautious.
Yeah, definitely need to take precautions, but at least good weekend weather to get outside.
Exactly. Make the best of it. Look at the positive. It's going to be sunny and warm and beautiful.
Yeah. And Cassie, do you want to talk about the South Pole sunset?
Yes.
This is so interesting.
I know.
I did not know this.
I just never thought of it. So we're in the northern hemisphere, right?
Yeah.
So in the southern hemisphere, the seasons are opposite. So while we're going through spring, they're going through fall right now, heading toward winter. So in late March, the sun set for the last time and the only time this year in the South Pole. Wow. So there are 45 researchers that are going to be staying down there throughout their winter season. That's for the next 6 months. They'll have a sunrise in September, and then the sun will be up throughout what will be the summer season for them. Throughout what is our winter. But yeah, they only get one sunrise and one sunset per year down there.
So then, I mean, what does that mean? Is it just dark day and night?
So it actually, the sun kind of cruises right along the horizon.
Okay.
So it doesn't come up enough to technically be a rise or a set. Now, once we get fully into the winter season, what's summer for us, yes, they will be in total darkness for an extended period of time.
What?
Yeah,
wow, that's so interesting.
Yes, the people who are staying down there, they interviewed one of them, and he was like, yeah, it's going to be fine. We'll miss the sun, but not that much. I'm like,
that much?
Couldn't do it.
I would be so confused.
I know,
wow.
But he did say it's kind of like leaving our world for one that's far less similar. I mean, I just can't even imagine what that experience would be like.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to what the researchers say.
Yeah.
It'll be neat. You'll have to come back and give us the update.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, Libby, let's talk about gas prices. We talked about it earlier, but I mean, if people have stopped by the pump, the gas prices they have probably noticed are definitely increased.
AAA says they've gone up 22 cents just in the past week. And another thing that it didn't surprise me because I've been getting gas, but it is kind of a gut punch when you see it. It's gone up 97 cents, almost $1 from this time last month. And this is something that everyone is feeling. They're feeling that pinch at the pump. Now, jet fuel and like car fuel are different types of fuel, but airlines and airplane ticket prices have already been pretty high because of jet fuel costs, and some of the things that are going on in our world, and now the gas prices are kind of following that. And it's almost summertime.
Yeah. Well, in summertime is when a lot of people take trips, and it kind of goes to the point that you were talking about. Of course, people who get gas, they see that higher prices. But then I think sometimes, people don't always think about jet fuel, and those airline ticket prices might also increase, but also trucks and trains that bring things that consumers buy to the area, that increases for them as well. So consumers could also see an increase too. But I think, we talked earlier about possibly tourism, if that could be impacted because of these prices.
So I talked to Jeff Muir with the Blount Partnership maybe a week or two ago, and we just touched on this when we were talking about something else. But what he said is, so when gas was $3 a gallon, people were still out living their lives. Once it hits around $4, though, there could be a change. The Great Smoky Mountains, people really drive there. Of course, if you're from super far away, you can take a flight. But even if you're taking the flight to the airport, it's going to be an hour in the car to get to the Smokies. And so they are thinking that if it does, it's close to $4 a gallon, right? If it hits higher, it might kind of flatline tourism this summer. So people will still go, but we've had these great big increases. So many people love where we live, right? But they might be watching their nickels and dimes and pennies and deciding they're not going on trips this summer. So I think that's something that's interesting too, is we already were seeing, okay, typically when the airline prices are super high, if it's a drivable distance, it's just like, okay, I'll drive. That's annoying to drive to Florida, but I can do it. Now at $4 a gallon, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Almost $4 a gallon, sorry.
Yeah. And I mean, even with local tourism, you think about people who live here and want to go drive Cades Cove, which I still haven't done. People who live here and the Smokies get, money from people who are from the area. That might also kind of prevent them from taking the loop around Cades Cove or just driving through the Smokies too. It's not always out-of-state tourists as well that it could impact.
It's impacting everyone. And it's definitely something that, if you do your monthly budget, we do our monthly budget every single month. We have a certain amount set for gas. That's going to change next month, right? And when that changes, maybe we have less money to go spend on other things. Maybe we have less money to go spend at the grocery store and those types of things. And I'm actually speaking to a professor at UT later today. You'll hear from him on 10 News at 6 about what you were talking about. Now that truckers are going to have to spend more money, now that farmers are going to have to spend more money for gas, how is that going to impact our pockets? How is that going to impact the prices at the grocery store that are already pretty high?
Yeah, well, definitely looking forward to what he has to say. I guess at least between the nice weather we're about to get and high gas prices, it might be a good time to just go take a walk outside.
That's
or just
right.
spend some time
Put dinner in
outside.
a crock pot and hang out outside.
Yeah, not inside of a vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, Cassie, Libby, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you.
And coming up next, 24 hours from now, a group of veterans will be flying to our nation's capital to visit D.C., plus the memorials that were built in their honor. But this is the final HonorAir flight for Knoxville. We'll have more with anchor John Becker right after this break. This week in Knoxville, a 20 years long tradition benefiting war veterans is happening for the last time. Since 2007, the nonprofit HonorAir Knoxville has given veterans an opportunity to fly to the nation's capital and visit memorials that were built in their honor. In the coming days on WBIR, we are going to feature interviews with HonorAir flight staff, plus one of the state representatives who created the program, and some veterans who are taking Knoxville's last HonorAir flight. Here's a look.
You were a helicopter pilot.
That's correct.
And I want to ask you, this is the last flight for HonorAir. What does it mean for you to fly on the last HonorAir Knoxville flight?
Well, it means quite a bit. To put it all into perspective for you and the listeners, I enlisted. So what really makes it really sickening almost, we had a president, Jimmy Carter at the time, and he pardoned all the draft dodgers and the deserters. Those folks came back to the United States with, open arms. Parties, parades, where the folks the draftee that went over to Vietnam, they almost had to sneak back into the country.
Veteran was talking to our 10 News anchor, John Becker, who is going on tomorrow's HonorAir flight. And he also joins us now. John, thanks so much for joining us to talk about this. I mean, I know that you've been on several, we've covered this, but for people who may not know, can you explain this flight?
Absolutely. These are flights meant to take veterans to see memorials built in their honor. And this started, Shea, as you know, almost 20 years ago, taking a plane load of World War II veterans up to Washington, D.C. And in that trip, it was really designed to see the World War II Veterans Memorial because that was built so many years after World War II ended. A lot of them wouldn't have had a chance to see it. So let's give them an all-expenses-paid trip to the nation's capital, and we'll see other memorials, but the focus will be the World War II Memorial. Since then, they have escorted more than 4,600 veterans to the nation's capital over, as we mentioned, almost 20 years, and this is flight 38 on Wednesday.
And I'm sure that you've been there several times whenever these veterans see, that memorial for them or their names. What were some of their reactions?
One of the greatest moments I've ever had was on the first flight I took, which was a rainy day. It was a really difficult day. But little did I know that Eddie Manis and two families had set up this reunion with two veterans from World War II, and they hadn't seen each other since the war ended. Cyril J. Payne was a tank commander in World War II and is from the Knoxville area. And then one of his buddies back in the war was from Virginia, and the two families talked, and I was there to witness the first time they reconnected in 75 years since the war ended, and it happened on the steps of the World War II Memorial.
And this trip, John, I mean, obviously a great experience, an opportunity for these veterans, but what is the feeling? I mean, is it more somber because a lot of them lost brothers and sisters in the war, or is it more happy because they're going to see memorials that are for them? I guess it could also be a mix.
It's both. It absolutely is both. I was the Vietnam Veterans Memorial, for people who haven't seen it, has the names of more than 58,000 troops who were killed in that war, and it is a powerfully somber place because you see the names of the dead right there on the wall, and there a lot of times people are doing rubbings of those names, so it's often very quiet around that memorial, and so that takes a somber tone. And I was there one time when a veteran who had been there a half a dozen times didn't have the courage to go up to the wall, and on the day I was there, two of his buddies flanked him and pulled him up to the wall so he could touch it for the first time.
Wow, that's amazing. And I mean, you as a journalist and witnessing these things, how does it make you feel? I mean, what are your feelings on it?
It's extraordinary. These are truly the 1% of the people in our country. Fewer than 1% of our nation serves in the military. And so this is such a way to show how much we appreciate that service and that sacrifice. It was one of the beginnings of this happened as our series was getting started. And it dovetails, I think, really well because Eddie Manis, who's the founder and CEO, chairman of HonorAir Knoxville, really wanted to give veterans a special moment and say thank you. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think our series tries to do, is give people a sense of their life experience in a way, thanking them by sharing their story.
And you've shared a lot of stories, gone on several HonorAir flights. Why is service and sacrifice? Why is that series so important to you? How did you come up with the idea?
I came up with it three ways. My grandfather served in World War II, and he had always been an inspiration, and so he was part of it. The second thing was I embedded with National Guard troops in Iraq in 2004 and saw all of the tasks and duties we asked of them in that country, and that so impressed me. And then three, when the memorial went up in downtown Knoxville that has the names of more than 6,000 East Tennesseans who've been killed since World War I saw all the names on that memorial and I thought, wonder what all the stories are behind those names. And then I thought, what about sharing the names of people who are living and sharing their stories? And that was really the three inspirations that birthed this series.
And I know you mentioned a couple of instances already, but are there any veterans or other stories or instances that just really stick out to you?
Well, so many. We've had a chance to go all over the world with some veterans. I flew to Vietnam with 24 Vietnam veterans, and for many it was the first time back in 50 years since the war ended, and seeing them have a healing experience together and seeing this country 50 years after war and what it looked like now was a really stunning experience in my journalism career. And then also in 2014, we followed two East Tennessee veterans back to the 70th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. One of those veterans was on Omaha Beach in the third wave. They called it Bloody Omaha because we lost so many on the opening hours of that fight in World War II. He lost part of his hand and didn't even make it into France. He got shipped off on a medical ship, and he went back for the first time. And then the second person that we followed, Clinton Riddle, was on a glider and crash-landed behind enemy lines and ended up being credited, his unit, with more than 400 days under fire. So he had extraordinary stories, and we returned to the same field where his glider crash-landed 70 years later. So those were experiences that really stand out.
And you mentioned several years ago being an embedded. Does that, I guess, give you a new lens into going and covering these HonorAir flights, because you've seen how it is in war zones? That is something that a lot of people, might see the HonorAir flights on TV or the homecomings, but to really see potentially what these men and women went through.
I feel like it is. It was a great snapshot for me as a journalist. I wasn't there long, only about a week in Iraq in 2004. So not just a minuscule amount of time, but in that time, it was so impactful for me to see what they were experiencing. And I remember being so nervous that I lost weight, even though I was eating nonstop over there. They fed us like kings. But it was you're at this heightened sense of alert, and I got appreciation for that going out with various troops on their combat missions at night and during the day. So it definitely opened my eyes, and I feel like was a good window into what we see, Shea. I know you've done ride-alongs with state troopers or local police officers or deputies. You get a sense, even spending a few hours with them, about what their day's like. And so I felt grateful I could do that.
And obviously, these stories impact veterans and, the men and women you talk to. But can you talk about how these stories also impact the community? I mean, you mentioned the coming home. How does that impact the community?
It's so extraordinary to be in that moment where these people who, many of them, when they return from Vietnam especially, would land on the West Coast and their commanders would say, we need you to take your uniform off in the bathroom and throw it away and walk out pretending like you are not a part of the military. And that was their homecoming. And now it's a chance for our community to say, welcome home. those two words mean so much. So it draws the community together. It doesn't matter your political stripe, your race, ethnicity, religious background. It's just about saying thank you to these people who put their lives on the line for all of us. And so that is really special. It's beautiful here in Knoxville. One of the coolest things that happens on HonorAir is when they land initially in Washington, D.C., and it happens spontaneously in the airport when they're getting off the plane, and you see other travelers realize what's going on, and immediately they take their hats off. They shake their hands. They give them hugs. They start clapping. It is really, it's so genuine.
I'm sure it's emotional
It
too.
is. It is really emotional.
Do you, and I know you can't necessarily speak for these veterans, but do you feel like, that honor just landing at the airport and people taking off their hats and saluting them, and then also the coming home, do you feel like that brings them a sense of peace and closure that maybe they didn't get whenever they came back home after serving in Vietnam specifically?
For some of them, absolutely. Absolutely. Eddie Manis would tell you this. He's had so many veterans come up to him and say, this meant more to me than most anything in my life. And to hear that from somebody near the end of their life is so, I hope, gratifying for him, because he's given so much as his volunteer team to make this happen. He will say time and time again, there's no way he could pull this off without the dedicated volunteers that he's had for 38 flights now. And yes, these veterans often say this is what they needed for some more closure in their life.
And a question that I asked you, and I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, why stop?
Yeah.
Why is it the last one?
It is. And really, this nonprofit can say mission accomplished, because they set out originally to take World War II veterans up to see the nation's capital and the memorials built in their honor. And that memorial we started talking about, specifically the World War II memorial. And then they expanded over the years to include veterans of Vietnam and veterans of Korea. And they've had a female veteran flight. And so they've really done what they set out to do. And I think that the time just feels right now to say, this is it.
Yeah. Before I let you go, JB, I want to loop back to that veteran you spoke to, because he has an amazing story of survival.
He does. This is a helicopter pilot in Vietnam who crashed not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. And on his opening day in Vietnam, he had a little training flight. And just as we were about to leave, he explained what happened on that training flight. Here it is.
It's a bullet from an AK-47 that I received on my first day in country on the orientation ride. The only thing that stopped me from getting it right there was a cable that's about that big around, an armor cable.
That is, I'm speechless. That is, I don't know what you would call that. Luck, destiny, fate to have your life saved by a cable.
A cable. And that is, it's sort of the definition of war that we've heard from talking with people who've been in it, and that is the randomness of war. Yeah. Sometimes it's a cable that can save your life. Sometimes the most highly trained warrior dies in a car wreck on the way to battle. It's that kind of randomness that's really just head shaking.
Well, JB, thanks for stopping by.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck tomorrow. I'm definitely looking forward to those stories, as I'm sure a lot of people are. But we will have so much more on 10 News regarding the veterans and also the volunteers and people who are there on that HonorAir flight and how it's benefiting them. We'll have much more on that. And we'll also have more on 10 News at 2 right after this break. Thanks for joining us, everyone. But there is so much more coming up on 10 News today, including big tech companies moving to rural areas and their impacts on small towns, because a professor at the University of Tennessee received a $1 million grant to study the impacts of data centers in rural communities. We'll have that on 10 News at 4 and 5. Plus, every player from the Lady Vols basketball team is off the roster. Coming up on 10 News, we will hear reaction from a former player, plus what is going to happen to this team moving forward. We'll have all of that and so much more on 10 News at 4, 5, and 6. Thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Get out there, enjoy the sunshine and the beautiful weather. You're in the Headlines is next.